Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the 28th on the 6th month of our Creator's calendar. The last, we just finished with the last of the wood offerings for this week on Prep Day, in how the festivals are reckoned in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And then we have this coming up, fourth day of the week would be the first of the 7th month, which is one of the four remembrance days of Noach, and also what we call Yom Teruah, or the Feast of Shouting, or they call it the Feast of Trumpets, but it's the Feast of Blowings or Shoutings, right? Uh, and we also happen to have that lineup today with September 6th on 2025 of the Gregorian calendar. Sorry about that. Either way, we're continuing with our reading of the book of Wa'ikra, Leviticus, through the Septuagint version, and we are currently on chapter 19. This is where we're starting to get into things that are more applicable for our lives. It's not covering leprosy or things that the Kohen has to look for, or parables only in relation to offerings that we are to do because there's no blood sacrifices anymore, right? These things are things that will always be applicable in his Torah, though, for us to follow. So, chapter 19, it says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the congregation of the children of Yisrael, and you shall say to them, You shall be set apart, for I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am set apart. Let every one of you reverence or fear his father and his mother, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. This does not just mean his weekly Sabbath, which is every seventh day of the week, but it also is the first and last day of unleavened bread, the day of Passover, the first and last of the days of Sukkot. You have other days throughout the years that are Sabbaths to him that are also supposed to be kept, which are also perpetual for us and our children forever. And it's more significant when you realize we're the literal seed of Abraham. But even if you're not, it's for us and our children forever because he's given this to the whole world to accept him. There was the literal first time he gave it to the literal first covenant believers of the literal seed of Abraham, and it was still those of the literal seed and all those that sojourned with them, the whole mixed multitude, right? From the time of Abraham and all those joining with him, all the way through to the mixed multitude that left Mitzrayim with them. It's always been exclusive to obedient people, regardless of their DNA. It says, You shall not follow idols, and you shall not make to yourselves molten mighty ones. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Now, I don't want to do this with everyone, but there is a difference between molten Elohim and idols. I know an idol can be a molten Elohim, but so is adultery, so is witchcraft, so is lying and defrauding people, fornication. These are considered idolatry in the renewed covenant. And the context there is these are things that cause spiritual blindness because you're setting something up in veneration above your maker. And if it's a physical idol that causes the blindness because you become like the one you venerate, it's the same thing when you do a thing that's evil without having it attached to an image. And that is renewed covenant context there. It says, And if you will sacrifice a shalom offering to Yahuwah, you shall offer it acceptable from yourselves. In what day soever you shall offer it, it shall be eaten. And on the following day, if any be or should be left till the third day, it shall be thoroughly burnt with fire. And if it should be eaten at all on the third day, it is unfit for sacrifice, it shall not be accepted. I think we might have read this one last time, but we'll go ahead and read through it anyway since we started. Okay. And he that eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the set apart things of Yahuwah, and the inner beings that eat it shall be destroyed from among their people. And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not complete the reaping of your field with exactness, and you shall not gather that which falls from your reaping. And you shall not go over the gathering of your vineyard, neither shall you gather the remaining grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. So this is the commandment given, right? And it mentions in the renewed covenant, the parable that Yahushua gives, he says that when those that were obedient did all that was commanded, then they shall say, "Oh, woe is me, we've only done what it was our duty to do," right? Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people. But when you read the context for it, which is found in the Shepherd of Hermas, I believe it's in one of the similitudes, he goes into detail saying, whatever is the command for us to do, we do that. There's no benefit to you because you're just doing what you're supposed to. But when you go above and beyond and you do more than the thing required, that is incurring favor with your creator. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, I'm just making it simple here. In that very same way, you have an example of this in Boaz and Ruth, where this is the command that you leave the gleanings for the poor. But he went beyond that and made sure that she was abundantly supplied for and was able to do more than just what was required here, doing more than just the base requirement and incurring the benefit and favor of our Creator, to which Boaz was favored. He had Ruth, who was a chayil ashat, or a virtuous woman, and it was through him that our Mashiach's genealogy came about, right? Not many people can make that claim to fame, but you can see that every one of them foreshown characteristics of mercy, love, kindness, patience, and all things that he approves of in their lives. You shall not steal, you shall not lie, neither shall one bear false witness as an informer against his neighbor. You shall not swear unrighteously by my name, and he's the truth, and you shall not profane my set apart name, or the set apart name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Yahuwah is, I am he who causes it to be your strength, power, and authority. You're one to whom you strive to reach. Literal definition of El, or Ella. And if you look at the Aleph Lamed Hey in the etymological dictionary from Ernest Klein, it gives you the original, or the original meaning of Elohim there is the one to whom everyone strives to reach, which is the embodiment of our Mashiach there in the flesh, right? You shall not injure your neighbor, neither do you rob, neither shall the wages of your hireling remain with you until the morning. You shall not revile the deaf, neither shall you put a stumbling block in the way of the blind, and you shall fear Yahuwah your Elohim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall not act unrighteously in judgment. You shall not accept the person of the poor, nor admire the person of the mighty. With righteousness, or with right ruling, justice, shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not walk deceitfully among your people. You shall not rise up against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. On the contrary, he wants us to be like the Good Samaritan. When we're asked, well, who is our neighbor? He didn't give you a qualification on their standard. He gave you the qualification on our standard, what we ought to be like, right? That's the kind of heart that he has for others, that he wants us to emulate, which is even throughout the Torah, if we have a care to look, because he says that, look, if your enemy is hungry, you give him food. If he's thirsty, you give him drink. If you see his animal laboring under a burden, you help it. And if you're supposed to do that to your enemy, how much more are you supposed to do for your own, for your kin, for your friends, for your neighbor, right? You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in any wise rebuke your neighbor. So you shall not bear sin on his account. You won't have blood on your hands, right? And your hand shall not avenge you, and you shall not be angry with your children or with the children of your people, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahuwah. This one is a difficult one for people to really grasp here because it encompasses pretty much most people in the world. The Reubenites are France, for example. Manasseh and Ephraim are America and the Commonwealth of the UK, Britain and the Commonwealth, not just in Britain, but all of it. Southern Ireland was Dan that came to America. Denmark was part of Dan. Uh, you, you have Shimon and Louis spread throughout all of them. You have the others in different places, Zebulun and Holland, right? And not only the ones that are known in groups that were foretold that are in Europe, but also the scatterings that are off in every place that broke off in branches or stayed where they were in the course of time, mixed with the people, like it was foretold would happen, right? We can't know if any of them are literally of the seed of Abraham or not, but we can know for certain that they literally come in every skin color today, no matter which one it might have been predominant in the beginning, which was never a thing. And we've talked about it here before. Abraham, before he was even born, has the all three sons of Noach in his genealogy. Japheth through the daughter of what is it? The daughter of Mede, the Medes, right? The daughter of I can't remember his name, but the predecessor, the ancestor of the Medes. He was a son of Japheth that came over and wanted to be with his father-in-law in the land he was over by where the Persians came to power. It was originally Elam's area, but his daughter married into the line, and then Nimrod, the very one that was one of the first anti-Mashiachs in the world, right? His daughter married Eber, the great grandfather of Abraham, and that helped bring in the idolatry amongst those people of the Kasdim. So the idolatry of idol worship, they had already, if you remember, sinned by keeping the writings of the Watchers about astrology. But either way, the point is, there's so much mixture of who's who and what's what in the world today. You can't say for certain that anyone is not the literal seed of Abraham. And regardless of that, we're all sons of Noach, and we should not hate any of the children of our people, right? You shall observe my law. You shall not let your cattle gender with one of a different kind, and you shall not sow your vineyard with diverse seed, and you shall not put upon yourself a mingled garment woven of two, like polyester, right? I wouldn't do a mixed fabric, and this doesn't mean that you can't wear two different fabrics like cotton and linen something else. It's when they're blended together is the issue for anyone that's wanting to be particular there. The only one that's specific is you don't wear wool and linen. And if that I'm familiar with, if you guys can remember anywhere that says differently, please share, and I will stand corrected and wholeheartedly admit it. I'm not trying to be dogmatic about things that I'm wrong in. But from what I recall off the top of my head, the only thing that is directly mentioned about specific mixtures of not to put together is wool and linen there. And then for the example of cattle and whatnot, we have you're not supposed to mix like a donkey and a horse to make a mule. And every kind of animal that can be gendered that way is usually sterile. They can't reproduce. And if anyone lie carnally with a woman, and she should be a home servant kept for a man, and she has not been ransomed, her freedom has not been given to her, they shall be visited, but they shall not die, because she was not set at liberty. And he shall bring for his trespass to Yahuwah, to the door of the tabernacle of witness, a ram for a trespass offering. And the Kohen shall make atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering before Yahuwah for the sin which he sinned, and the sin which he sinned shall be forgiven him. And whenever you shall enter into the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, and shall plant any fruit tree, then shall you purge away its uncleanness. Its fruit shall be 3 years uncleansed to you. It shall not be eaten. And in the 4th year, all its fruit shall be kadosh, a subject of praise to Yahuwah. And that doesn't mean that you give it all away as a tithe. In Josephus, it goes into detail here. You're supposed to take all of your fruits and you go and you party before him and you are grateful. Now, if you don't eat all of it, like it's a particular berry or whatever, you can sell or you live far away. It's the same thing as if you had the cattle in hand, you or whatever produce, you would sell it and you take that money and you go and you buy whatever your heart desires and you'd rejoice before him with the produce that you had gotten. And that's what you do with your first fruits here. It's a subject of rejoicing before him. It's not to be used in any other manner, but to be grateful. And in the 5th year you shall eat the fruit. Its produce is an increase to you, that you do what you want with it. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. I had mistakenly thought that you had to give all of it away when I first read that, but in Josephus it corrects you there. And that is consistent with what you do with the other tithes that you bring in. You always eat before him and rejoice with it. And in the 5th year you shall eat the fruit. Oh, I read that one, sorry. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Eat not on the mountains, nor shall you employ auguries, nor divine by inspection of birds, which they still do in Catholicism with the release of the doves on a yearly thing. There's other ways they used to do that. Divining by tea leaves or livers of animals or other things are not to be done. It's all instigated by demons. And the eating on the mountains is partaking of the pagan festivals, what they would do offering to idols up there. You shall not make a round cutting of the hair of your head, nor disfigure the beard. Um, I used to do that, and one of the things that you can know that we're not walking correctly is it's institutionalized to make this sin for every soldier in the American military. They have to, by the UCMJ, they're required to break this law and cut their hair in such a manner, as well as disfigure their beards. And it was foretold that this would happen in the sons of Yahusuf by what happened to their forefather when he was released from prison to serve Pharaoh. He was shaved and changed in the very same manner. And then he was used to acquire all of the land, resources, and things for Pharaoh, a foreshadow of what was going to happen with us today, which is something else we've mentioned before. But I point that out so you can see
Go
that.
over the beard.
I'm sorry?
You please speak a little more about the beard, how it's supposed to be cut.
Well, he says it's not supposed to be cut at all. You're to keep it trimmed, well trimmed and groomed. And the whole idea is that we're supposed to be, not looking like a ragamuffin, if you will. That's not a word in scripture, but he doesn't want, and you look at the example from the sons of Louis, that kind of grooming or kind of maintaining yourself is put to all the people. That's made clear in the apostolic constitutions, but it's told why we're not to change what he has created and called good. The things that are blemishes, we can do, like if you have a skin tag or wart or things like that, they're not normal, natural phenomenon, but um, problems in the body, there is remedy for that. But the things that he's made and called good, we're not supposed to change. And that includes how a man's facial hair grows or putting makeup on a woman. And that's what he talks about specifically in the commandments for men and women there. I I don't have a stake in the game with when it comes to makeup or anything, but when it comes to the other stuff I do because I am a man and I can get it. For a man, we're not to dress provocatively or to make ourselves in such a way as to entice another woman if we're married. And neither is another woman, neither is our wife supposed to do that for a man. That's why the whole thing's just not to be done. But these are things that are easily seen if you look at that book. It's not so easily seen if you look at the other writings individually. But if we take everything together, it is a consistent theme throughout history. You can find the prohibition against the makeup wearing all the way in the testaments of Reuben and what would happen with Yahuda and Reuben and women as examples of that. Um, and it carried on into the renewed covenant times, or in the other writings, like in the Antiquities of the Yahudim or the Wars of the Yahudim by Josephus. Yahusif was his real name, but they call him Josephus, Flavius Josephus, right? If you read that, he tells you that Cleopatra used makeup and it was the type that was bewitching Marcus or Mark Antony, led him into doing some horrendous things that got him killed. But to get back on point here, it just says you're not to disfigure your beard like you wouldn't shave so it's just a thin line going down or groom it to where it's got zigzags or something special. You just leave your beard to grow. You can trim it, you can keep it short, you can grow it longer, but you're supposed to keep it kept. That's as far as I know about any of the instructions out there. Aside from that, every man's told to modestly diminish the beauty that nature and Elohim's given him so as not to entice another to you, especially if you're married. He says, and you shall not make cuttings in your body for a dead body or for the dead, and you shall not inscribe on yourselves any marks, which we'd call tattoos. People want to say that, oh, well, you can't get a tattoo for the dead, but there's distinctions here. There is distinctions in the Hebrew as well. You're not supposed to mark your body, period. You're not supposed to cut yourself for the dead, period. You're not supposed to do anything that injures yourself in that kind of capacity or commits violence upon the body, which I have 10. I've done it before I ever knew better. And after I learned not to, I stopped. And it's the ignorance in me that led me to do the things that were not good. So I hold to his truth. And so long as I never do that again, what has been done will never be held against me. And I am very grateful for that. I think everybody should be grateful for the opportunities we have in that capacity. But it doesn't mean we continue in it. We have to acknowledge it's wrong and we have to stop. You shall not profane your daughter to prostitute her, so the land shall not go a whoring, and the land be filled with iniquity. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuaries. I am Yahuwah. Notice it's plural. And he even mentions in the book of Yobelim that he would have the temporary sanctuary. He would have um, the temple, and he would have other things later until he had his dwelling that was not made with hands, that was with us for all time. But it's mentioned in Yobelim, and I believe it might be in Fourth Ezra or Second Baruch, where he alludes to more than one set apart place, right? Before it happened. Or it wouldn't have been before it happened there, but it definitely was in Yobelim. Sorry about that. The other mentions of them, that there's more than one. We know in the course of the history that he had the wilderness tabernacle built in the wilderness that was destroyed, or it was no longer in use after the time of the judges when the Philistines had taken the ark. And then when it was brought back, Dawid eventually set apart the location of the Hekel and built an altar there where they brought in the ark and the offerings that had been there until it was removed. And for anyone that doesn't know, the Ark of the Covenant was no longer ever mentioned after the Babylonian captivity. It was not taken and was not returned when the captivity plundered the stuff of the temple. So it was already missing by that time. You find out in Second Baruch that it was removed by messengers to a hidden location. You find out in the Maccabees that it was taken by Yirmiyahu to Mount Nebo, but that Mount Nebo is not accurate. It was either intentionally giving the wrong name there or it was tampered with afterwards. I can't say for certain, but the idea they went to Golgotha. They took it and they hid it right underneath Calvary, where Yahushua himself suffered his passion, which Ron Wyatt discovered and we've already mentioned before. You shall not attend to those who have in them divining spirits, nor attach yourselves to enchanters, to pollute yourselves with them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. We have two types of enchanting that I'm familiar with. You have hypnosis, and then you have literally people put potions and draughts and things of that nature. I don't have examples other than, pharmaceuticals. You got it, vaccines or things like that would be like a witch's brew of old. And look at the ingredients of some of the stuff they put in there and look at what they used to concoct back then. It's synonymous. It's unclean stuff all brewed together, but I'm not worried about that. The enchanting in this capacity, you have like the thing that was given to Yahusuf, where it was supposed to make him desire the woman if he ate it. I don't know of any modern examples of that kind of phenomenon. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm just not familiar with it. So it could be a modern practice of most candies out on the market today, especially during Halloween, and I would not doubt that in the least, which I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I'm not going to mention any names, but in a conversation that came up with someone that I know, they were talking to someone else about a candy that was acquired at Halloween. I believe it was a Halloween candy, or it might have been an Easter candy. When it was offered to them, they said, I wouldn't touch that if I were you either for the reasons why. And they always said, I know, but I don't care. Took a bite and broke their tooth that very bite. So I do think that there is some things we ought to leave alone and stuff in any capacity related to pagan festivals. I I can't imagine that there's anything clean that can come from it. So I mentioned that not to shame anyone that was involved with it, but to help everyone that might be eh, tottering the fence there. We don't need to eat candies, especially if it was Christmas candy or Easter candy. That stuff should burn. It's okay to just let it go. Don't pollute yourselves with them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall rise up before the hoary head, the white-headed, and honor the face of the old man, and shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And if there should come to you a stranger in your land, you shall not afflict him. The stranger that comes to you shall be among you as the native, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And that was a peculiar thing that the Germans were known for above almost every other people in the world. The Scythians before them, which the Scythians were the Germans. If you're not familiar with the history, the Scythian people, the ones that repented after the captivity by Assyria, that broke off and wanted to keep the law, they were known as the most hospitable people in the world. And even after they were junted into Europe and called Germans by the Romans to separate them from the Sarmatians, they were the Germani, the genuine Scythians, as opposed to the Sarmatians that were coming into the land that they had dwelt in. Uh, they're always known for their hospitality. They would take in even Romans and give them great feasts and treat them kindly in their own homes until they were abused by the stranger. They were very hospitable because it was in here to love your neighbor in such a capacity. You shall not act unrighteously in judgment, in measures and weights and scales. There shall be among you righteous or just balances and just weights and just liquid measure. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Now, in the Hebrew there, this would say Anoki Yahuwah Elohika. So I am Yahuwah your Elohim is synonymous with like that says Ani, but the usually, and I'd have to look at the real Hebrew because sometimes they'll put a word here that isn't right. But in uh, Exodus 20, when it says, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, that very word that brought you up, it's Anoki Yahuwah Elohika, which is literally my plumb line. I am is the same as my plumb line in Hebrew, that particular word, which, if you look at Amos, his plumb line that he set before them, that the standard for all that's going to live is his word that he's given us to live by. And that's the one who causes it to exist. Right? And you shall keep all my law and all my ordinances, and you shall do them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Now, a lot of people, you can look into what the secular history mentions about Molech worship and what that spun off to, just like you can look into the mythologies and the Greeks and what all that spun off into. But its history and where it started from, the whole point of what it's trying to tell us, and the things still going on today are the things I'm trying to mention. So Moloch is just the word Melech, which is king, with the vowels for shame or for to be shameful in it. And it's about king worship. It's a shameful thing to look to a man rather than your creator, which is what they had done. And with Ham making the first sacrifice of his child there, it was carried on into an established religion to offer your children to the king that you venerated, to worship as a deity, if you will. But it started with Ham and Nimrod and the error that came in from that. And it's coalesced today in people being subservient to men rather than our creator. It says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, You shall also say to the children of Yisrael, if any of the children of Yisrael, or of those who have become proselytes in Yisrael, so those sojourning with them, who shall give of his seed to Moloch, let him be surely put to death. The nation upon the land shall stone him with stones. Notice the condition there. It's not something that you're supposed to do here. In our country, for example, if you were to take someone out and stone them with stones for violating the Torah here, you would go to jail for murder, rightly so, because we're not given to do that. He doesn't command us to have this law right here, right now. We're not supposed to strike it. You have to keep in mind what he said in the new covenant, right? Everyone perfected will be like their master, and he didn't strike anybody. Stephen was a great example and the first martyr, right? So I'll leave that alone. And I will set my face against that man and will cut him off from his people, because he has given of his seed to Moloch to defile my sanctuary and profane the name of them that are set apart to me. And if the natives of the land should in any wise overlook that man in giving of his seed to Moloch, so as to not put him to death, then will I set my face against that man and his family, and I will destroy him and all who have been of one mind with him, so that he should go a whoring to the princes, from their people. This says with Molech here. The other one says with princes. The princes would be in the context of the messengers put it over each tribe or nation. It's mentioned that the 70 that were split up at the tower was for the messengers that were put over them, and each one, while they themselves did not ascribe being Elohim of themselves, they're worshipped by the people that they're over. This is explained by Kepha in the Recognitions of Clement. It says, "And the soul that shall follow those who have in them divining spirits or enchanters, so as to go a whoring after them, I will set my face against that soul, and will destroy it from among its people." And if you're curious to know how you can know the difference between someone who's generally foretelling the truth and who has a divining spirit, they will, it's the Deuteronomy 13 test. If they do it in any other name but Yahuwah Elohim alone, it's not of him. And if anything that they ever say doesn't come true, it's not of him. Those are the conditions. And then the third is by their fruit you shall know them. You can guarantee as a fact that no one can be a foreteller of the Almighty, be his while doing sinful things. That's just the fact. You can do sinful things and be corrected by him and then repent and then still be his, but you cannot do the evil, be unrepentant, pretend to foretell, and be acceptable. It's not going to happen. It says, "So as to go whoring after them, I will set my face against that soul and will destroy it from among its people." And in the Psalms, it mentions that every morning he uproots all the wicked or all the wrong from the house of Yahuwah. What do you think he's doing? He's abiding by his own words. Everything that he's put down that he will do, he's going to. So this is why we have to be careful about who we associate with, what we choose to do. That's why when they put horoscopes in the newspapers and everyone that reads them was bewitched by it, and they're allowed to have demons have interact or control their thoughts and actions or influence them, it's because they've given themselves to associating and following those who have them willingly. And because of that, they've put themselves under the jurisdiction, and the witchcraft is able to have an effect. It's literally how it works. It's another way I try to explain it is that Satan is like a rabid dog on a chain, and he will bite you. It's axiomatic. He will do you harm, but only if you're within his jurisdiction, right? "And you shall be set apart, for I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am set apart. And you shall observe my ordinances and do them. I am Yahuwah that sets you apart. Every man who shall speak evil of his father or of his mother, let him die the death. Has he spoken evil of his father or his mother, he shall be guilty. Whatever man shall commit adultery with the wife of a man, or whoever shall commit adultery with the wife of his neighbor, let them die the death, the adulterer and the adulteress. And if anyone should lie with his father's wife, he has uncovered his father's nakedness, let them both die the death, they are guilty. And if anyone should lie with his daughter-in-law, let them both be put to death, for they have wrought impiety, they are guilty." Notice it doesn't say that just one of them are. Okay. In all of these instances, both that are culpable will suffer punishment. In the instance where one is not culpable, the one who is not culpable will not suffer the punishment. But it's through his right ruling and justice and determining the facts of the truth that you're supposed to do all these things. And whoever shall lie with a male as with a woman, they have both wrought abomination. Let them die the death, they are guilty. Whosoever shall take a woman and her mother, it is iniquity. They shall burn him and them with fire, so there shall not be iniquity among you. And whosoever shall lie with a beast, let him die the death, and you shall kill the beast. And whatever woman shall approach any beast, so as to have connection with it, you shall kill the woman and the beast. Let them die the death, they are guilty. All of these things were first instigated by the watchers and emulated by men afterward at the instigation of demons, as it's by the instigation of Satan, as it's foretold and as it's mentioned through the scriptures. But this is why he's prohibiting these things. It seems odd, especially if you've never had any connection with such a thing. But tragically, these very, very disgusting things happen when men don't know the truth here. It still happens today. And it's because of the facts that it did happen that he was trying to correct it. Everything that was written is correcting something that was already violated in history. Whosoever shall take his sister by his father or by his mother, and shall see her nakedness, and she see his nakedness, it is a reproach. They shall be destroyed before the children of their family. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness, they shall bear their sin. This is this is not just seen in the context of looking at them. There's a sexual connotation when you uncover the nakedness of your mother or your sister or whatever. It's more than just seeing them naked. Okay. The fact that that happens is a shameful thing that was even recorded. The shame of your mother was what would you uncovered in your tent on occasion when they lived in close families in tents. It was a hard thing to avoid, and it was a shameful thing when it happened. But you didn't die because of it. There's more involved here. Okay. Now, there's more nuances. The idea that you would even see the nakedness or this thing would come about, the fact that it doesn't happen to everybody, all of this stuff, there's more involved for the reasons behind the things that happen. I couldn't take the time to explain every nuance because I don't know. But I do know that there's hidden things for which things happen. They happen to some people and they don't happen to others. And all of it is explained. What we can know for the phenomenon in the world is explained in his word. And as to the best of my ability and knowledge as we go through these things, I'll try to point it out as we go. All right, it says, and they shall bear their sin, right? He has uncovered his sister's nakedness, they shall bear their sin. Verse 18. And whatever man shall lie with a woman that is set apart, and shall uncover her nakedness, he has uncovered her fountain, and she has uncovered the flux of her blood. They shall both be destroyed from among their generation. And you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister, or of. Now, there's another mention of this that if a man is with this woman during the time of her separation, he becomes unclean and has to wash, and he's unclean for a week. So this is obviously not the same instruction because you're not going to destroy a man that has a chance to become cleansed. This is if he does it intentionally, intentional while they know that it's happening as opposed to it's an accident. Okay? And you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister or of the sister of your mother, for that man has uncovered the nakedness of one near akin, they shall bear their iniquity.
Hmm,
Whos
hmm.
Whosoever shall
Pain
lie
in my
with.
leg.
I'm sorry, brother, you're not on mute. I didn't know if you're trying to comment. Okay, sorry about that. And you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister or of the sister of your mother, For that man has uncovered the nakedness of one near kin, and they shall bear their iniquity. Whosoever shall lie with his near kinswoman has uncovered the nakedness of one near akin to him. They shall die childless. Whoever shall take his brother's wife, it is uncleanness. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall die childless. Now, this is what Yahukanan the Immerser was trying to admonish Herod about, taking his brother's wife while his brother was still alive. And that was what the wife, Herodias, was incensed about, that eventually led to her using her daughter to contrive his martyrdom. And keep you all my ordinances and my judgments, and you shall do them, and the land shall not be aggrieved with you, into which I bring you to dwell upon it. Just to finish that thought, I'm sorry. He did, while they had a daughter, the woman that did that, had a daughter. Herod the Great, because of what evils he had done and what he had done to the line of the rightful heirs of the kahuna, his whole family was taken out within 2 generations. So the fact that he had done that and taken a wife, they died childless, he didn't continue on any heirs for his line. That was the connection there. So it literally was fulfilled in what he had done. And walk you not in the customs of the nations which I drive out from before you, for they have done all these things, and I have abhorred them. And I said to you, you shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you for a possession, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who have separated you from all people. That separated you from all people. Badal, okay, to divide. There you go. I wanted to see if that was Kadosh or not, but he's divided or separated us from all people there. And you shall make a distinction between the clean and the unclean cattle, and between clean and unclean birds. And you shall not defile your souls with cattle, or with birds, or with any creeping things of the earth, which I have separated for you by reason of uncleanness. And originally, this was meant that you don't defile yourselves by eating them and by touching whatever he called unclean in whatever condition it was supposed to be, which is different for certain types of animals. The creeping creatures you're to abominate even while they're alive. The pig you were to abominate at its death, so you could not touch them. They would be unclean, right? He doesn't want you to do these things. And even today, we're not supposed to use unclean animals as food. We're not to defile our souls with them. And you shall be set apart to me. Another two more reasons here, if you just need for people who might have difficulty. It's directly commanded what is food and what is not food. If you look carefully at the part of Acts with Kepha and the vision that he has, he explains that it was about men and not what he ate. And he himself declared, even after our Mashiach came, that no unclean thing had ever crossed his lips, and nor would it, right? So that couldn't have been about the food. Another thing you have to consider is we are all the dwelling place of Elohim, in which the Ruach of Elohim dwells, and we are not our own. If we are to be his temple, no unclean thing is to be offered in it, period. It says, and you shall be set apart to me, because I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am set apart, who separated you from all nations to be mine. And a man or woman whosoever of them shall have in them a divining spirit, or be an enchanter, let them both die the death. You shall stone them with stones, they are guilty. There's things involved in that I don't want to get into, but you get the gifts of the Ruach by the obedience to the Almighty, and you get the gifts of Satan's spirit, or what we call magic, by doing things that he wants you to do, which is contrary to what is plainly in the scriptures here. That's as far as I want to go right now with that. All right, chapter 21 says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the Kohanim, the sons of Aharon, and you shall tell them, They shall not defile themselves in their nation for the dead, but for a relative who is very near to them, for a father and mother, and sons and daughters, for a brother, and for a virgin sister that is near to one, that is not espoused to a man. For these ones shall defile himself. For these one shall defile himself. Meaning you can't touch them, you couldn't mourn or show an outward thing. Remember when he was in the official garments of the Kohen position and his children died, he was told not to tear his garments, not to mourn, lest he die. In that position, he could not do that. And also, unless they're near kin here or a virgin sister, they were not to defile themselves or become unclean for them. In that instance, it would be just like he mentioned to Aharon when that happened with his two sons. He's like, let your kinsmen come take care of them, but don't you yourself defile yourself by doing so. He shall not defile himself suddenly among his people to profane himself, and you shall not shave your head for the dead with a baldness on the top, and they shall not shave their beard, neither shall they make gashes on their flesh. They shall be set apart to their Elohim, and they shall not profane the name of their Elohim, for they offer the sacrifices of Yahuwah as the gifts of their Elohim, and they shall be set apart. And they shall not take a woman who is a harlot and profaned, or a woman put away from her husband, for he is set apart to Yahuwah his Elohim. Even when divorce was permitted for a time, the son of Louis, or the Kohen, was not allowed to marry a woman who was put away. So he was still showing you his heart's intent for those who are more pure and have to draw near to him, the requirement, which has never changed, and he's made this the requirement for everyone. We're no longer allowed to get divorces now, right? And you shall set him apart. He offers the gifts of Yahuwah your Elohim. He shall be set apart, for I, Yahuwah, that set him apart, am set apart. And if the daughter of a Kohen should be profaned to go a whoring, she profanes the name of her father. She shall be burnt with fire, which is what Yahudah wanted to do with Tamar, because it was what was to be done with whores among the children that he knew about from the laws of the altar before the Torah was given. And it's what is in store for the mother of harlots. She will burn with fire. Right? And the Kohen that is chief among his brethren, the oil having been poured upon the head of the anointed one, and he having been set apart to put on the garments, shall not take the turban off his head, and shall not rend his garments. A direct prohibition for the Kohen that is chief to do that, which is what Caiaphas did in front of Yahushua when he was a usurper of that position and then forsaking it because he became void of it when he did that. That was all part of the transfer of the kahuna to our Mashiach as well, which is a study that someone had gone over before. I believe it was our brother Scott Whitman, but please don't quote me on that. It says, Neither shall he go in to any dead body, neither shall he defile himself for his father or his mother. And he shall not go forth out of the sanctuary, and he shall not profane the sanctuary of his Elohim. because the set apart anointing oil of Elohim is upon him. I am Yahuwah. He shall take for a wife a virgin of his own tribe, but a widow, or one that is put away, or profaned, or a harlot, these he shall not take, but he shall take for a wife a virgin of his own people. And he shall not profane his seed among his people. I am Yahuwah that sets him apart. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Say to Aharon, a man of your tribe throughout your generations, who shall have a blemish on him, shall not draw nigh to offer the gifts of his Elohim. And this is another great example of a physical commandment, a carnal command teaching a spiritual application. It was used literally, where if there was any blemish, if there was a scar or whatever, they could not serve. And this law was used to the detriment of the actual Kohen that was serving in the times of right before the coming of our Mashiach. If you read in Josephus's Antiquities of the Yahudim, the descendants of the Maccabees who had reign from Alexander Janus, when his wife came to power, she gave, to stay in authority, she gave power to the Pharisee sect, who did persecutions and evils amongst the people and instilled the Talmud and things, or the extra laws that hedge in the Torah, if you will. But um, when they were contesting for one, fighting for one another on who would be the Kohen before Herod came to power, when his brother had caught the other brother from the Parthians, he had his ears cut off so that he was blemished and no longer able to serve. Mhm. It says, no man who has a blemish on him shall draw nigh, a man blind, lame, with his nose disfigured, or his ears cut, a man who has a broken hand, or a broken foot, or humped back, or blare-eyed, sorry, or that has lost his eyelashes, or a man who has a malignant ulcer, or tetter, or one that has lost a testicle. Whoever of the seed of Aharon, the Kohen, has a blemish on him, shall not draw nigh to offer offerings to your Elohim. Because he has a blemish on him, he shall not draw nigh to offer the gifts of Elohim. And in the same way, we can be reasonably certain that any man professing to be a pastor, preacher, minister, or evangelist, or anyone serving our Creator who has a spiritual blemish on him, he is not serving in that capacity. It is not lawful. He is removed. That very phenomenon is gone over in detail in the Apostolic Constitutions under the gifts and ordinances. I believe it's the gifts of the Ruach, or right before that one, where it talks about profane overseers or people who usurp the authority and become void of that position. And it's anyone who, using that title, abuses it by doing things unlawful, automatically voids them of the benefit of it. The gifts of Elohim are most set apart, and he shall eat of the set apart things. Only he shall not approach the veil, and he shall not draw nigh to the altar because he has a blemish, and he shall not profane the sanctuary of his Elohim, for I am Yahuwah that sets him apart. And Moshe spoke to Aharon and his sons and to all the children of Yisrael. All right, and we are on chapter 22. I am sorry. I had said that this would be in more context of how it applies to us, and I was mistaken there. A little bit was, but then it's going into the details about Aharon and his children again, which in certain contexts can apply. Everything that they're required to do in grooming and cleanliness and the things of how they should behave are meant to be examples for the people to emulate whenever it's a righteous action or virtuous behavior. So aside from that, you can see some of the the context of the physical, literal, and then how that applied spiritually. Try to consider how the rest of that is in all of these things as we're reading them. But this says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aharon and to his sons, and let them take heed concerning the set apart things of the children of Israel, so they shall not profane my set apart name in any of the things which they consecrate to me. I am Yahuwah. Say to them, Every man throughout your generations, whoever of all your seed shall approach to the set apart things, whatsoever the children of Israel shall consecrate to Yahuwah, while his uncleanness is upon him, that soul shall be cut off from me. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And here's another one that's a very harsh condemnation for any supposed teachers that approach the set apart, like you're getting a paycheck to be a pastor while you're in your uncleanness, for example. It's cut off from him. You're no longer serving in him, and that's not something I would want to be a part of. And the man of the seed of Aharon the Kohen, if he should have leprosy or issue of the reins, shall not eat of the set apart things until he be cleansed. And he that touches any uncleanness of a dead body, or the man whose seed of copulation shall have gone out from him, or whosoever shall touch any unclean reptile, which will defile him, or a man whereby he shall defile him according to all his uncleanness, whatsoever soul shall touch them shall be unclean until evening. He shall not eat of the set apart things unless he bathe his body in water. And the sun go down, and then he shall be clean, and then he shall eat of all the set apart things, for they are his bread. He shall not eat that which dies of itself, or is taken of beasts, so that he should be polluted by them. I am Yahuwah. And they shall keep my ordinances, that they do not bear iniquity because of them, and die because of them, if they profane them. I am Yahuwah that sets, or Yahuwah Elohim that sets them apart. And no stranger shall eat the set apart things. One that sojourns with a Kohen or a hireling shall not eat the set apart things. But if a Kohen should have a soul purchased for money, he shall eat of his bread, and they that are born in his house, they also shall eat of his bread. And if the daughter of a Kohen should marry a stranger, she shall not eat of the offerings of the sanctuary. And if the daughter of a Kohen should be a widow, or put away, and have no seed, she shall return to her father's house as in her youth. She shall eat of her father's bread, but no stranger shall eat of it. And the man who shall ignorantly eat set apart things shall add the fifth part to it and give the set apart thing to the Kohen, meaning you pay it back with interest because you've stolen. And they shall not profane the set apart things of the children of Israel, which they offer to Yahuwah. So should they bring upon themselves the iniquity of trespass in their eating the set apart things. For I am Yahuwah that sets them apart. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aharon and his sons and to all the congregation of Israel, and you shall say to them, Any man of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that abide among them in Israel, who shall offer his gifts according to all their confession, and according to all their choice, whatsoever they may bring to the Yahuwah for whole burnt offerings, your freewill offerings, be males without blemish of the herds, or of the sheep, or of the goats. They shall not bring to Yahuwah anything that has a blemish in it, for it shall not be acceptable for you. And whatsoever man shall offer a shalom offering to Yahuwah, discharging a vow, or in any way of free will offering, or an offering in your feasts, or of the herds of the sheep, it shall be without blemish for acceptance, and there shall be no blemish in it. One that is blind or broken, or has its tongue cut out, or is troubled with warts, or has a malignant ulcer or tetters, they shall not offer these to Yahuwah, neither shall you offer any of them for a burnt offering on the altar of Yahuwah. And a calf or a sheep with the ears cut off, or that has lost its tail, you shall slay them for yourself, but you shall not, but they shall not be accepted for your vow. That which has broken testicles, or is crushed, or gilt, or mutilated, you shall not offer them to Yahuwah, neither shall you sacrifice them upon your land. Neither shall you offer the gifts of your Elohim of all these things by the hand of a stranger, because there is corruption in them, a blemish in them, these shall not be accepted for you. So, right here, he's not saying there's a blemish in his people. He, on the contrary, tells them to be without blemish and to don't come to him with a guilty heart, right? He explains that even in more detail when Yahushua came in the flesh. But right here, you can see that you're not supposed to accept it from a stranger because there's corruption in them, and that makes their offering unacceptable. So I'm hoping you can see that our offerings themselves will also be unacceptable if we have uncleanness in us, or sorry, corruption in us. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, As for a calf or a sheep or a goat, whenever it is born, then shall it be given 7 days under its mother, and on the 8th day, and after they shall be accepted for sacrifices, a burnt offering to Yahuwah, and a bullock and an ewe, it and its young, you shall not kill in 1 day. And if you should offer a sacrifice, a vow of rejoicing to Yahuwah, you shall offer it so as to be accepted for you. In that same day it shall be eaten. You shall not leave of the flesh till the morrow. I am Yahuwah, and you shall keep my commandments and do them, and you shall not profane the name of the set apart one, or neither shall you profane my Kodesh name. I will be Kadosh, or set apart among you. Okay. And I will be set apart in the midst of the children of Israel. I am Yahuwah that sets you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. All right, and I think we might have time for one more here. This one is covering the feasts and the things that are definitely still applicable for us today. And they go right in line with what you see in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The only things that are not mentioned here in detail would be, I think it's the new oil and new wood and new wine. Why those aren't mentioned in detail, I can't say for certain, but we do have abundant information where there's multiple witnesses on the fact that they are kept and how. But again, not all of these things are meant for everybody. If you did not have land with trees on them, you would not use your wood for offerings for the wood offering. It's pretty simple, right? But let's continue here. It says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, The feasts of Yahuwah which you shall call set apart assemblies, These are my feasts. 6 days shall you do works, but on the seventh day is the Shabbat, a rest, a set apart convocation to Yahuwah. You shall do or you shall not do any work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. These are the feasts to Yahuwah, set apart convocations, which you shall call in their seasons. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between the evening times, is Yahuwah's Passover, from the ninth hour to sunset, the evening period where there's the mixture of light and darkness, right? That's the between the evenings where it was supposed to be offered. And on the 15th day of this month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. And the first day shall be a set apart convocation to you, a Sabbath, which is what I was telling you, there's more than just the weekly Shabbat, right? And you shall do no servile work. And you shall offer whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah 7 days. And the seventh day shall be a set apart convocation to you. You shall do no servile work. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you shall enter into the land which I give you, and reap the harvest of it, then shall you bring a sheaf, the first fruits of your harvest, to the Kohen. And he shall lift up the sheaf before Yahuwah to be accepted for you. On the morrow of the first day the Kohen shall lift it up. And you shall offer on the day on which you bring the sheaf a lamb without blemish of a year old for a whole burnt offering to Yahuwah. And its meat offering 2/10 portions of fine flour mingled with oil. It is a sacrifice to Yahuwah, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuwah. And its drink offering, the fourth part of a hin of wine. And you shall not eat bread or the new parched corn until this same day, meaning the Abib barley, until you offer the sacrifices to your Elohim, a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. And you shall number, and I want you to notice every time there's a new festival, it says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, right? And then he gives you the new one. Right here, he goes from the first fruits where you put the Abib barley in, and then immediately goes to the counting until you get to the next one. There is no separation between these, where you see that, where it's broken up, saying this phrase. But you will see that continually throughout the text here. Just something to keep in mind. And it says, And you shall number to yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day on which you shall offer the sheaf of the heave offering, 7 full weeks, until the morrow after the last week. You shall number 50 days. And you shall bring a new meat offering to Yahuwah. You shall bring from your dwelling loaves as a heave offering, 2 loaves. They shall be of 2/10 portions of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven of the first fruits to Yahuwah. And this is the only offering of leavened bread that I'm aware of. It's the 2 loaves given in Shavuot, the 15th of the third month, that represent the renewed covenant when he poured out his Ruach on the full leavened, the 2 houses full of his doctrine. A lot of people mistakenly claim that leaven means sin because we're told to remove the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, which is hypocrisy. But when you look at the full context, it never mentions anywhere in Scripture that the leaven is equated to sin. It's equated to doctrine. And while we are to be unleavened, remove the doctrines of the false things that we had put them away, and to take on the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, which is our Mashiach, the 40 days and 40 nights, or the going with him during the time of getting his constitutions for his kingdom, and then having the outpouring of the Ruach was the fullness of the two loaves being sent or brought before our Creator at that time. And that's like the two houses full of the doctrine of our Mashiach, fully leavened, where it goes along with the parable that the kingdom of Elohim is like a woman who had hidden three measures until all was leavened, where you had the first covenant times with Abraham, the times with Yitzhak, and now we're living through the times of Yaakov, Yisrael. So just to keep in mind the context there. And you shall bring with the loaves 7 unblemished lambs of a year old, and 1 calf of the herd, and 2 rams without blemish, and they shall be a whole burnt offering to Yahuwah, and their meat offerings and their drink offerings a sacrifice, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuwah. And they shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of a year old for a shalom offering, with the loaves of the first fruits. And the Kohen shall place them with the loaves of the first fruits, an offering before Yahuwah with the 2 lambs, and they shall be set apart to Yahuwah. They shall belong to the Kohen that brings them. And you shall call this day a convocation. It shall be set apart to you, and you shall do no servile work on it. It is a perpetual ordinance throughout your generations in all your habitations. And when you shall reap the harvest of your land, you shall not fully reap the remainder of the harvest of your field when you reap, and you shall not gather that which falls from your reaping. You shall leave it for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Now, this should sound familiar because we just read a commandment that was very similar to it. And you will find in every single instance throughout the entirety of this book, every command that he's given, he's repeated at least once, because it's at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses that every word shall be established. And that is the official and literal and only way that we are supposed to come up with doctrine and accuse ourselves of wrong according to his established written words. We we shouldn't use one witness to establish a matter and hold to it for anything. So it's very important that we keep that in mind. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, there's a separation, right? Speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a rest, a memorial of trumpets. It shall be to you a set apart convocation. You shall do no servile work, and you shall offer the whole burnt offering to Yahuwah. Now, I went ahead and said that it's a memorial of trumpets, but that, there you go. It says blowing. It's a teruah is for blowing or the shouting. And then they say the trumpet right there is teruah. So it's the same word, but that word is not trumpets. The word for trumpet would be like a shofar. So it's the Feast of Blowing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead and then I lost my spot, but we were right there. It was a Feast of Blowing. There we go. And it says, and you shall do no servile work, and you shall offer whole burnt offering to Yahuwah. And then we have a new festival here. It says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, also on the 10th day of this 7th month is the day of atonement, or Yom HaKippurim, the day of coverings. It shall be a set apart convocation to you. And you shall humble your souls, an offering for a whole burnt offering to Yahuwah. And like I said, as our sister kindly mentioned earlier this morning, we have Yom Teruah coming up next week on the fourth day of the week. And then 10 days after that will be the Day of Atonement, where we are supposed to humble our souls on the 9th in the evening through the 10th in the evening, as we're going to read right here. It says, and offer a whole burnt offering to Yahuwah. You shall do no work on this self same day, for this is a day of atonement for you, to make atonement for you before Yahuwah your Elohim. Every soul that shall not be humbled in that day shall be cut off from among its people. And we've done the study on that together in our group, where this humility, humbling ourselves, is always tied with afflicting our being with fasting. It, the explanation in detail for why afflicting your body with physically abstaining from food is how you afflict your inner being, is explained by Kefa in the recognitions, specifically in the Sirach version in the 10 missing chapters from book 3. He talks about how the things that happen to the body are meant to teach the soul, because the body is nothing of itself. It's the dwelling place of your inner being. And every soul which shall do work on that day, that soul shall be destroyed from among its people. You shall do no manner of work. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your habitations. It shall be a set apart Sabbath to you, and you shall humble your souls. From the 9th day of the month, from evening to evening, you shall keep your Sabbaths. In particular, this one, a lot of people will use this one verse to say that it's the witness that we have the day start in the evening. But again, this is one witness where it's never once directly said that that's what you do to start any day. And all of the abundant witnesses throughout the entirety of Scripture, in the narratives and otherwise, has a day start in the morning. So um, I only mention these things because it is an issue that's commonly believed by some people today. And there's a lot of problems that we have like that. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I do encourage everybody that holds to whatever differing opinions that might be considered not normal. Look at Irenaeus's 5 books of titled Against Heresies, or even look at the Apostolic Constitutions in Book 7, I believe, which is a section on heresies, and just study that. Read what the Gnostics brought in that was contrary to the truth as given, and I guarantee some people will be utterly shocked that the common practices and beliefs of many people today are right there in that book as a heretical thing brought in by the Gnostics. And I don't say that to upset anyone, but so that we can turn from those things and not do them. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of this 7th month, there shall be a feast of tabernacles, 7 days to Yahuwah. And if you remember, these were walked out first by Abraham, our forefather, as mentioned in the book of Yobelim. He was given the promised seed, the promise of the seed, right? And then Yitzhak was born. And after he was born, he kept the Feast of Tabernacles first. In the course of time, he brought him to be like the Passion foreshadow of our Mashiach. He brought him to Mount Moriah as an offering on Passover, and then kept those feasts commemorating it. These are mentioned in the course of the narrative, both in the Bible and in Yobelim, but the Bible's completely gutted its connection with the festivals in the narrative for whatever reason. I would be more inclined to believe that it's because it was too closely resembling the calendar as found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and could not be kept intact that way. by those that were rejecting the truth. But let's continue. It says, and you shall bring with the loaves 7 unblemished lambs of a year old, and 1 calf of a herd, and 2 rams without blemish, and they shall be a whole burnt offering to Yahuwah, and their meat offerings and their drink offerings a sacrifice, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuwah. And they shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of a year old for a shalom offering, with the loaves of the first fruits. And the Kohen shall place them with the loaves of the first fruits, an offering before Yahuwah, with the 2 lambs, and they shall be set apart to Yahuwah. They shall belong to the Kohen that brings them. And you shall call this day a convocation. It shall be set apart to you. You shall do no servile work on it. It is a perpetual ordinance throughout your generations in all your habitations. So I want you to see there is a distinction and difference between what laws are for in the land and what are for all times everywhere we're at. The festivals being kept outside of the land, which is another thing that I've heard people say that you can't do, is directly contradicted right here in the very instructions giving them. And then you have another witness to this in the book of what they call Tobit or Tobiyahu, where he's keeping the festivals outside of land in Nineveh, no less. And he's accepted before our Maker and helped mightily. It says, and when you shall reap the harvest of your land, you shall not fully reap the remainder of the harvest of your field. When you reap, and you shall not gather that which falls from your reaping, you shall leave it for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. I'm sorry, I already read that. We got messed up. Please forgive me. We read about the Day of Atonement, and then we are going to be keeping tabernacles right here. So that's right. Anyways, Yitzhak was brought in, and then when he was keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, this was when, after the promise of the seed was fully accomplished, and after the offering had been made, um, I'm sorry, before the offering had been made, he was rejoicing that it had happened as it was said to, and that the seed that was promised to him was given. And that was the whole, that the seed promised, the promised seed was with him in the world and they're dwelling together. And that was the keeping of Sukkot here, a type of what was to come, if you guys can see that. So please forgive me, I didn't mean to mess that up. But right here we'll start with verse 33. It says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, on the 15th day of this 7th month there shall be a feast of tabernacles, or Sukkot, 7 days to Yahuwah. And on the first day you shall be a set apart convocation. You shall do no servile work. 7 days shall you offer whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah, and the 8th day shall be a set apart convocation to you. And you shall offer whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah. It is a time of release. You shall do no servile work. These are the feasts to Yahuwah which you shall call set apart convocations, to offer burnt offerings to Yahuwah, whole burnt offerings, and their meat offerings, and their drink offerings, that for each day on its day, besides the Sabbaths of Yahuwah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides your free will offerings which you shall give to Yahuwah. And on the 15th day of this 7th month, when you shall have completely gathered in the fruits of the earth, you shall keep a feast to Yahuwah 7 days. On the first day there shall be a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And on the first day you shall take goodly fruits of trees, and branches of palm trees, and thick boughs of the trees, and willows, and branches of osiers from the brook. Those are willows from the brook, right? I don't, it's a small Eurasian willow. Okay. To rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim 7 days in the year. And this again has gone over in Yobelim as well, that Abraham, our forefather, did this, and we're following suit in tradition, where the palm branches and things represent victory, and the fruits are like the fruits of the Ruach that are produced, and we have them, and we're rejoicing 7 days before the altar, all reflecting the truth, the conditions of what is in parable form and actually walking it out. So I'm hoping you can see that a little more clearly with these things that we're meant to be doing. So it says, it is a perpetual statute for your generations. In the seventh month you shall keep it. 7 days you shall dwell in tabernacles. Every native in Israel shall dwell in tents, that your posterity may see that I made the children of Israel to dwell in tents when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And Moshe recounted the feasts of Yahuwah to the children of Israel. It says recounted here, it says declared here, debar, right? But once again, I do want you to see that these are the feasts, the moed of Yahuwah, not of his people. His people's feasts are what they're rebuked for in Hosea, and doing things in an unlawful manner, which, just for perfect clarity, you don't have to guess at what that is. If you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls and you go to what's called the Peshar Hosea, or the interpretation of Hosea, it gives you, quote, word for word passages of the verses and explains what it means. And in the verses where it's talking about their festivals, it's specifically talking about the pagan festivals that they've adopted instead of doing the things that he said, which was a phenomenon that our forefathers did in the land there that caused them to be kicked out. And it's a tragic phenomenon that still continues with his children today, because mostly we don't know better. But ob willing, we're learning. So thank you all for your time. I do believe that's going to wrap it up for today, but we're going to run by it real quick. If not, you all have a great rest of your week, a Shavua Tov, a great Sabbath today, Shabbat Shalom, and we will talk to you later.